Hello and welcome to the Whisky.com news on the 7th of August 2019. And today we have a lot of news. It's going to be a long one. So let's dive right in. First of all, we have an international news from Facebook. Facebook is changing their terms of service and restricting access to some pages because they are no longer allowing private trade of alcohol through their platform. And also the sales and praising through private means in Facebook groups. And you always have to have age restriction when you want to sell or praise alcohol. So the company side of Whisky.com is age restricted, as it has been always. So we're not really affected by that because we're not privately selling and we are also age restricting. But there might be some Facebook groups that have been closed, and unfortunately you cannot age restrict groups as far as I know. So it's kind of don't talk about alcohol, enforce that rigorously, or we close all of your groups. And if you want to talk about single malt, it's really hard to not talk about alcohol. So basically, it's a banning of private talk about single malt whiskey. So if you really want to talk about whiskey on Facebook, feel free to go to Whisky.com and discuss some stuff there. I'm not censoring anything. If anything's censored, then it's not me. Okay, so that out of the way. If you want to discuss something about alcohol, just come to Whisky.com in the forum. And occasionally we do also talk about whiskey there as well. And we're not going to censor. Next up, let's talk about some real whiskey news. Gordon and MacPhail is publishing their oldest whiskey of all time. It's not the oldest whiskey of all time all over, but from a few distilleries. And the distilleries are really, really interesting because we're talking about the St. Macallan and the Belgium Distillery. The Belgium is from 1969. And the St. Macallan bottling is from 1982. And there are 4 bottlings in total. So it's really, really interesting from closed and very old distilleries, or not very old, but rare distilleries. You get some bottling. So the specialists and the collectors amongst you, this might be a really good chance to strike. There will also be a few Longbourn and a few Mortlach. Then we have also some good news because Kilchoman just finished their doubling of production. Yeah, they built a new still house, and with the new still house they also bought mash tuns and fermentation equipment. So now they have 4 stills, 6 wash bags, and 1 new mash tun. It's all identical to the old stuff, so not really anything is changing about Kilchoman. Except they're gonna have more output, and that is good for the consumer because we're not gonna be such in high the supply is not gonna be so limited, so the prices will not rise that much. And then we have another GlenAllachie coming to the market, and it's gonna be the GlenAllachie 15 years old, 46% ABV, not colored, not chill filtered, matured in PX and Oloroso casks, and will come to the market in September. Depending on where you live on the planet, it will probably take some longer time. GlenAllachie is publishing their 17th cask bottling series. The single malts from this series are now between 1990 and 2009. There are 14 casks were picked, and they are all from sherry or port casks. They're all unchill filtered, all uncolored. 7 of them will go to Europe, and depending on where you live, you will also get a few of these bottlings, but they're not all available all over the planet as they are highly limited. Then we have news from Smokehead and Tamdhu. They're both broadening their travel retail bottlings. So the Smokehead gets the new Smokehead Rum Riot. It's matured in you can expect it, Caribbean rum casks. 43% ABV and will be released in October. Tamdhu is just a very limited bottling with 595 bottles and a cask strength of 57.1%. So it's not going to be available, probably not going to be available everywhere. And if it is available everywhere, it's going to be out very, very fast. So it's a highly limited edition. Then we have Bruichladdich Beer Barley 2010 and the organic coming to the market. They are matured for 8 years in ex-bourbon casks, 50% ABV, no coloring, no chill filtering, and no peat, and they're 100% organic barley. The organic 2010 is all organic barley. The beer barley, not quite sure. I think they have special barley as well. Then we have Macallan, which is releasing a very, very old bottling. If you have watched the Macallan Distillery video in the warehouse I talked about, you have seen a few of these casks and they're really, really old, and some of them might be released in the next future. Now is the next future. The cask that has been bottled was from 1950. So yes, nearly 70 years old. It is limited to 336 bottles, probably all of it from the cask, and it's 53.4% ABV. So yeah, pretty serious cask strength, and it was matured in a first fill sherry cask. And now comes the bad part. It's gonna be really, really expensive. Yeah, it's gonna be 45,000 British pounds. So yeah, if you have that much money, you might as well buy one, because this is one of these rare bottles that are not gonna be around for long. Or yeah, you will not be able to buy much of them in the future. Then we have some news from England. There is a new distillery coming up, and it's going to be called the Princetown Distillery. It's going to be located in the west of England, and it's going to be built by the Princetown Distillery Company and the investment company Spirit Traders. And what they do is they are already going into their sales mode. They are pre-selling casks. So you can buy casks from the first 600 casks they're gonna produce. The new spirit can be filled into very, very different casks. So you can buy bourbon, sherry, and other wine or spirits. And yeah, the problem is that the first 600 casks in a distillery are usually with varying qualities, because you don't just start off and you get exactly the stuff that you want to have. You want to do a few test runs, you want to adjust the stills, and just find out when you adjust your equipment what taste you want to have. You fiddle around with different times of fermentation and that kind of stuff. And it turns out that usually you take a few hundred casks to set the spirit to the right flavor that is gonna be defining for the distillery as the distillery character. And these casks will therefore not be bad, but they will be in varying character and varying style, and not have that much to do with the distillery character of the distillery when it is fully set. So you might as well buy one, because it's gonna be fun if you have a cask in England. Yeah. Next up, we go to United States. Last week we had Diageo investing a huge sum of money. Today it is Beam that was investing a huge sum of money. They are investing $60 million into a new distillery. The new distillery is going to be called Fred B. No Craft Distillery. If you have watched my 2015 Jim Beam Distillery visit video, then you will see that there was already kind of a craft distillery inside the distillery with a small column still and separate fermenters and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not quite sure if they're going to use that equipment or if they're going to build new equipment. but they're gonna build a smaller craft distillery that is gonna produce their small batches, the Boucano, the Bakers, and their new spirit that's gonna be called Little Book. And they're also gonna do some experimenting, some research to just get better expressions out in the future for Jim Beam. So kind of a good thing. And you will also be able to visit this distillery. So all in all, the Beam company will have 3 different kind of distilleries for producing Beam whiskey, and you will be able to visit 2 of them. Then we have some good news for United States, because there will be a new exclusive Glenlivet 14 years old for the US market. It's going to be a single malt that has been matured in ex-cognac casks, 40% ABV, and as I said, only available inside the United States. And last but not least, we have Heaven Hill. Heaven Hill is bottling new rye whiskey for their Parker's Heritage series up. It's going to be 52.5% ABV, 8 years old, which is really, really old for rye whiskey. The cask will be charred thoroughly or very heavily, more than the usual casks that be used at Heaven Hill. So let's have a look. Hopefully one of these bottlings will find their way to my cask and I can try it, because I really like the rye whiskey, and old bourbon, old American whiskey should not be that bad. Yeah, so yeah, that was it. Thank you very much for sticking that long to all my rambling, but it was just a really, really big news week for whiskey. Thanks for watching and see you next time.